Kirby Grenfell, partner of R.A. Peebles in the Nelson Auto Company, has just returned from a visit to Vancouver, Victoria, Seattle, and Spokane, during which he made a survey investigation into automobiles and auto trucks with the object of ascertaining the best vehicles for conditions in this district. Mr. Grenfell, for the past season, was head mechanic for the Nelson Transfer Company, and originally was expert for the McLaughlin Company in Regina, Saskatchewan. While away, he examined and drove the new Overland Small 4, for which the Nelson Auto Company is the latest agent, and was very much impressed by the splendid performance and workmanship on the parts of the car, and by the easy riding and hill climbing
Anyway, Kirby, tell me, when did you first start doing auto mechanics? You started down in the States, didn't you?
1905.
And where were you?
No, not in the States, London, Ontario.
But you went down to the States after that.
I went down, oh yes, after that. Oh yeah, we moved from Nelson here in 1920, I think it was.
And you were down in California.
And I ran a garage in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Not your own. You were.
No. I was foreman. I was foreman. Yes. And the man that hired me was a mechanic expert from a college in Los Angeles. And he quit the college and opened up this garage and had the agency for Chevrolet. And when I went in to have an interview with him, and there was about 6 men ahead of me at the time, so I had to wait my turn. So when it came in my turn, I told him all my experience and where I was from and all that. So he said, well, I'll think it over, and he says, you might hear from me later. So the next morning at 7 o'clock, I was staying with my brother-in-law, and the phone rang, and he answered the phone and said it was for me, Kirby, you know. And he couldn't figure out who it was, me, a stranger in Los Angeles, and wanting me, you see. So he wanted to know if I could come over to the place of business there, and he hired me right away.
And how long were you down there working?
Well, I was there a year and a half, and I got fed up with it, and I quit. I wanted to get a month off, and so I just packed up my tools and came up north to Spokane.
Were you married at that time?
Oh yeah.
You're married, and when did you buy that Stutz Bearcat? Didn't you have it at
I bought that
time?
Stutz Bearcat when we were on our way back down to Los Angeles. Yeah.
And you still had it when you came back up?
I still had it, and I
Spokane.
drove it to Nelson here one time. Yeah. And it had a racing rear end in it, and
you were saying you had trouble negotiating the main street here in Nelson because it was so overpowered?
Oh,
over-geared.
The gear ratio, yes, it was so fast, you see. And it took me about a half an hour when I did buy it to get used to it, because it was so, so powerful, you see.
How long did you keep that car?
Oh, I kept it here for a long time. I drove it to Nelson one time. Yeah. And then I sold it when the Spokane Automobile Chamber of Commerce wanted me to be the official appraiser for 22 dealers in Spokane. And I couldn't drive that car around in the traffic geared up so high, so I got rid of it.
Right. How long were you appraiser?
Appraiser. I was appraiser there for about a year because the Cadillac people and the higher priced automobiles, the
Packards and
Stanley, it's not Stanley Steamer, but I can't remember the names of them now.
well, did they have?
But they knew that I knew all about these cars from my experience.
Yeah.
So they hired me to do the appraisal for all the dealers, 22 dealers in Spokane. And if a person took their car in to have it to look at a new car and wanted to buy one, and they wanted to know how much they were going to get for their car, they'd phone the office and I'd have to go over, take it out and drive it, figure out how much it took to put it to the market value. And that was the price it'd go for, and they couldn't sell it, or they couldn't go anymore.
Right. Well, you came back to Nelson then to open the restaurant.
Came back to Nelson in 1933 and took over a restaurant. Yeah.
And I want you to tell me again about that exciting time when you had the murder occur right in your restaurant there.
Yeah.
Well, you were in the restaurant right at the time that occurred, weren't you?
No, yes, I was in the restaurant just when the fellow shot himself and shot the girl. And it was about 9 o'clock at night.
How did it all start? You were at the movie that evening.
This man was going with this young girl, and he was old enough to be her father. So when she came over to work for me in the cafe as a waitress, he heard that she was going around with some fella here in Nelson. So he just came over here and shot her and shot himself.
Well, you had been at the movie that evening, I understand.
We went to the movie, before.
Before this all occurred.
Yeah.
Right. And then you came back to the restaurant.
And then we came back to the restaurant at 9 o'clock. See, that's when they changed the shows, you see.
Right. And you had gone into the back, I understand.
No, I hadn't gone. I went in behind where the cash register was to see if there was any business while we were at the show. Because things in those days, were pretty tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had booths at that time, so you didn't actually see where they were sitting and arguing.
No.
And
they weren't arguing.
Oh.
No. He waited until they got through sweeping the floor and got to the far end of the dining room where it was dark, and then he just grabbed her and shot her in the neck.
And she was killed outright, wasn't she?
Right away.
And then what were you doing at that moment?
Well, I was standing behind by the cash register, and when the bullet went over and hit the wall, the brick wall, it had a ping to it, like that, and I ducked because I thought they were shooting at me.
Oh.
And the chef came running out of the kitchen with a cleaver, you see, but he came around this way instead of going that way, and he missed seeing them on the floor.
Oh, at this point, they were both down on the floor.
They were both down on the floor.
Oh, he just turned the gun on himself immediately.
Yeah.
But he survived that shot.
He survived for 6 months, yeah. Have you heard about it before?
Well, you had told me he shot himself through the temple.
Yeah.
And but all he did was blind himself.
That's right.
And he survived, and he
for about 6 months, you see.
Was he ever at trial?
Well, I couldn't tell you because I didn't hear any more about him because he was in the hospital. No.
But he died then from complications.
Oh, yes.
I understand.
Yeah, I guess so.
That was the end of that story.
Yeah.
But your restaurant then thrived for how many years after that? That was 33, you say, when you started?
They wanted me to buy the building. But instead of that, Mrs. Papazian, that was the owner of the building, she had some friends come from someplace, I forget where it was now, and they bought the business and all the stuff the way it sat. But half the stuff was all mine, all new glassware for the fountain and all new dishes. And he thought he was getting all that stuff, the man that bought it, you see. But instead of that, I had packed all the old junk that she had, broken cups and, cracked plates and all that. And I put it out in the back shed. So when I told him, I said, no, you didn't buy all this stuff. I said, I'll show you the stuff you've got. So I took him out in the garage at the back there, or a shed, and showed him what he bought. So he right away raised the devil, you see. So he had to make arrangements to buy all that stuff off of me. Yeah. Is that thing taking?
Oh yeah, this is all recorded now.
Oh yeah.
I've heard the story, but
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I got it on tape, you see.
Yeah.
And because I heard then that you had opened the little Shamrock after that. The little Shamrock Restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
Did you go directly over there after your other...
No, about 6 months. I didn't have anything to do when I was going over to the show one night. And there was Mrs. Montellion. She used to do a little bootlegging on the corner where the Shamrock is now. And I stopped in there to get something to take to the show, like gum or something.
Yeah.
And she said to me, she said, "Oh, Mr. Grenfell." She said, "When are you going to start business again?" Well, I said, "I haven't been able to find a location." Well, she said, "Why don't you buy me out?" Well, I said, "I might do that." I said, "I'll come in after the show and talk to you." So I went in after the show. I made a deal and bought all the stuff that was in there. I paid only $1,800 for the stuff. But I rented the building, you see.
Yeah.
But she turned right around and sold that building and made a $500 profit on it. So I had to pay an extra $500 more than she bought the thing for to own the building.
Yeah. Is she the one that was called Bubbles?
Oh no, Bubbles, no.
No, well now who was Bubbles?
Bubbles is a cook that used to have a little restaurant over by Grand Forks, I think it was, somewhere in there. And I hope that thing isn't running, Doc, because see, I got to think.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Oh. And where was I now?
Bubbles was over by Grand Forks, you say?
So, yeah, and she had a little restaurant. So I was looking for a cook. So when I heard about her, well, I brought her over, and she was cooking for me.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, she was cooking for me.
She was part of that restaurant at the Shamrock.
Hey?
And you called it the Shamrock, did you?
No, Grenfell's Cafe.
Was that what the old one was called too on Baker Street? Was that called?
No, that was the Plaza Cafe where the murder was.
Oh, I see. So
yeah.
you had bought it as the Plaza and kept that name.
That's right, yeah.
And then you opened the new one as Grenfell's Cafe.
We called it Grenfell's Cafe.
And how long did you own that little Grenfell's Cafe then?
Oh, for several years. I couldn't remember now. And then the war, you see, came, and I couldn't buy supplies. I couldn't get help. So there was a man eating there for 2 or 3 days, and I went up to him and asked him who he was and where he was from, and noticed him eating there for several days. And he said, I can't think of his name now, but he said, "I'm with the National Film Board, and through the University of BC, you know."
Yeah.
And I said, "You are?" Well, I said, "I'm an old motion picture operator." And he said to me, "You are?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're just the man we're looking for." So he took down all my information that I gave him, you know, about myself and talked it over, you see. And he said, "Well, I'll send it in the head office." And he said, "If it comes back," he says, "you got yourself a good job." So then I was covering East and West Kootenays for the National Film Board.
Well, now you were running a projector, were you?
I carried everything with me in the car.
Oh,
and I put in these shows in all the different towns, you see. I carried a generator and everything right in the car. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Well, now, you had originally been a projectionist way back
as
a
1911.
teenager or something.
1911.
You started as
in Calgary.
Right.
Yeah, in the Majestic Theater there.
Yeah.
And that was an old theater that was just like a box hanging on the wall, and you had to go up the step ladder to get into it. Yeah. And there were carbon arc lamps, you know, carbon arc lamps.
Yeah, I know the kind you make.
Yeah, and it was so hot in there, it was just terrible.
And there was the fire hazard from those carbon arc
lamps. Oh, definitely.
Too. Yeah.
So my boss built a new theater, and those are the pictures that I've got in there where I'm in the new theater, you see.
Have you got those pictures handy?
Sure.
Because we can film the pictures while you turn the page.
Oh,
I can do that.
oh, sure, I got that picture.
What did you earn back as a projectionist then in 1911?
Well, you have to be an electrician for one thing.
No.
And I was an electrician. I got my license way back in Regina. I helped install the elevators for the Parliament buildings in Regina.
No.
Oh, that's a way back.
You don't remember what the wages were in those days?
Oh, my God. Well, when I was working on the cars, the first time it was 35 cents an hour. Yeah.
Without
And
any benefits, I guess.
Oh, nothing. Yeah.
Now we're away. You're operating two projectors in that picture.
Yes. That's so that you don't have to shut the show off for 5 minutes or change the reels. See, years ago you only had 1,000-foot reels, but now you can put 18-inch reels in there, and one man can operate the two machines. Yeah, just turn one on and turn the other off automatically. Yeah. I don't know what else you want, Doc.
That's yours at the top there.
Yeah,
And the one at the bottom was out of a
Yeah.
magazine. Right.
yeah.
You were the sales manager for Hutmobile,
Yeah,
and that was the Hutmobile in the lower left,
and that's
was
the
it?
Hutmobile there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, oh, Doc, I'm all mixed up here. Oh, it's so hard for me to do anything.
Yeah, now tell me, when you got your electrician's papers back in, was it Calgary?
No, in Regina.
In Regina.
Yeah.
That was back in 1911?
No, it was before that. It would be about 1909, I think, Doc. Somewhere right in there.
And
Yeah.
so you started out as an electrician in Regina,
In Regina. As an
Right.
electrician, yeah.
right?
Wiring houses, you see. Yeah.
And that's when you packed around
That's-
these old porcelain insulators and rolls of wire.
That's right. And a bracing bit, you know, for boring the holes and all the tuber-fours, you know. You had to do it all by hand with this angle brace.
Right.
Yeah. And then you put a tube in there, a porcelain tube, you know, where the wire went through, an insulator,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And then you put those in there, and then when you string your wire, you just run it clean through.
Right.
So I started to tell you about this Burns packing place. So when I got into Calgary there, and they had this fire,
What made you go to Calgary?
a friend of mine was a motion picture operator, you see, that got me the job.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they had this fire at the Burns packing plant there, and they had to get going to start. So they had to have big, heavy wire.
Yeah.
Oh, big stuff, as big around as my finger, strung so that they could start their motors up and start business again, you see.
Yeah.
So I was in there up on a scaffold, way up high on a scaffold, running this wire along the wall, and all of a sudden there was a hole in the ceiling there, about 5 foot square. All of a sudden there was a whole mess of steaming hot bones came down through that hole onto this cement floor. And the smell was something that just, oh, it was terrible. And I got sick in my stomach, and I got mad, and I went in and I said, listen, you can get somebody else to do this job because I can't stand it. So I quit. Yeah.
So that's when you became a projectionist.
That's when, yeah, I started, and what's his name got me this job as a projectionist, you see.
Yeah. What brought you then to Nelson?
What brought me to Nelson?
No.
Well, that's quite a long story.
Well, let me hear it.
Well,
Go ahead.
what brought me to Nelson from Regina, my wife's sister lived at Appledale, about 35 miles out of Nelson. So when they landed here on the boat, the steamer, after being on the boat all night and unloading in the morning at 6 o'clock down at the dock here in Nelson, we came uptown and we had to take the train from Nelson to Spokane City, but it only ran twice a week. So we went to the Hughes Hotel and got a room. So I went over to the garage and they handled the Chevrolet car and the McLaughlin. And I introduced myself and told them who I was and where I was from and what I did and all that. And if they needed any tuning up in their cars. So old George Ferguson, he said, we need all the cars tuned up. He said, you're just the man we want. So they sent a man up to town to get me a pair of overalls, and I put my overalls on and I tuned up all the cars for them, and they couldn't get over it. They just didn't want me to go. So he told me that they were going to build a new garage, you see, the next year. And one day I got a wire from them saying that the garage was halfway up, and they wanted to know what I'd consider to come out and run the shop for them. So I wrote them back, and that gave us enough time to appreciate Nelson as a beautiful little city. It's such a change from being on the country, you know, on the prairie. So we talked it over, and we decided that, wait, I'm getting a little ahead of my story here. So when it was time to take the train, we went to Appledale, and we spent a few days there. So when we came back, that's the time when they told us that they were going to build this new garage. And one day in Regina, I got a wire, saying that the garage was half up what I would take to come out and run the shop. So I wrote them back, and we decided we'd come, and I told them all my expenses paid and $250 a month.
That was pretty good pay.
Yeah.
These days.
So I got an answer back from old George Ferguson, and all it had on it was, come at once. That's all it had on it. So that's when we moved out to Nelson here.
Did you buy this house that you're living in now?
Oh no, I just bought this place here after I sold out the cafe down here.
Oh.
Out in the
The Shamrock? Or the
Plaza.
Oh, the Plaza?
Yeah.
Right. Well, where did you live initially when you came to town?
Well, now here's another story. The operator of the theater here in Nelson, which they're renovating now, the operator in there, I introduced myself and I told him I was an old operator in Calgary. So he says to me, by God, he says, you're just the man I'm looking for. He said, I want to get out of that box for a little while. He said several times. He said, would you come down and run the show for me? And I said, sure. So I went down to the Capitol Theater there, and I used to sneak in there because they'd take my license away from me, you see, if they knew it. And I didn't have a license for BC, but I had it for Alberta.
Right.
You get the idea?
Yeah.
So I used to go up and relieve him here at the Capitol Theater, and nobody knew anything about it. Yeah.
So the Capitol Theater was a big social event back in
yeah.
those days. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was after the old Opera House burned down, I guess.
Oh,
the Capitol
sure.
Theater
Oh,
was
yes.
the big
Yeah.
attraction then.
Yeah.
And they were still showing those old acetate films with the old carbon arc lamp.
Oh, yeah.
Here at that
That's
time.
right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you kept that up until you went down to California then?
I
very
went,
well.
yeah.
What made you decide on California?
Because my mother and sister lived in Los Angeles.
Oh, I see.
And my sister worked for Howard Hughes, the billionaire that built airplanes. I got it all in there.
Right.
Yeah. And she was his head girl.
No.
And she had about 30 or 40 girls under her in the place there, the head office, you know.
Yeah.
And about every 2 or 3 days, why, he'd send another great big bouquet of red roses for her desk. Yeah. And, oh, God, I could tell you doctor's stories.
That was your sister who worked for him?
Yeah.
For Howard Hughes? Right.
She was his head girl. I don't know whether she ever got any money out of it or not, you know, because she was there 30 years.
Oh.
And every year, every 5 years, they put a diamond in a little pin. They'd add another diamond every 5 years.
So they worked for the company?
Yeah, for working for the company.
Yeah. And Howard Hughes was he doing primarily, what, machine parts then, or was he into airplanes?
Oh, he was building the whole airplane.
Oh, was he?
Oh, he was a big factory.
Right.
Yeah. Now then,
Tell me about the mechanics of those first cars that you had. You say they had solid tires.
they had solid rubber tires and wheels like a buggy wheel.
Yeah.
And the motor was underneath the seat at the back.
Yeah.
And when you got to the corner, they'd only go about 8 to 10 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And when you got to a corner where you wanted to make a turn, if you turned the thing too fast, well, the wheel would get underneath the buggy, you know, like the way they used to. Can you remember?
Well, I can imagine.
It turned you see out. Yeah.
And the wheels were wire spokes or wooden spokes?
Oh, they were wooden. They were just like a buggy wheel.
They were
Exactly.
wooden spokes at that.
Yeah, wooden spoke. Yeah.
Yeah. And that would be around the early 1900s then. That's when you were an electrician, when you first started fiddling with cars.
Yeah, that'd be around that. Yeah.
Yeah. And you just learned about cars by doing them, I guess.
Just by working on them. Yeah.
Right.
Well, the first car I ever worked on was one of those, and the motor had been taken out. Somebody had been working on it, and the motor was all in pieces, mind you, and I had to put that together and put it back in the car again.
And you worked that out just by...
I worked it out, just...
Figured it out in your head.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You couldn't do that with a modern motor. You had to have a mechanic's manual and
Yeah.
all kinds of information.
Yeah.
And you came out here tuning cars then just on the basis
Oh,
of your experience then.
Before I moved out here, Doc, I was a road mechanic. The McLaughlin people in Regina would send me out. The dealers would come in and buy 3 or 4 cars. See, it was like a factory in Regina. We'd stock about 150 cars.
Was this after you were already an electrician?
I got to think. Yeah, this is after. Yeah.
And the McLaughlin people hired you in Regina
Yeah, that's
to
right.
tune up the factory cars,
Yeah,
or
that's
finish
right.
assembly, I guess.
And I used to have to go down to the Montana border with about every 2 months and tune up all the big McLaughlins. They had the big ones down there, the big 7 passengers. They had a half a dozen of them. For bootleggers, you see, they were catching them going across the... Yeah. And I had to go down there well, depends. One of them might have a burnt out valve, or there might be a noisy rear end or something like that. And I'd have to go down and fix them. So I got to be a traveling mechanic for them, see?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they had...
And do you know something, Doc? That McLean was the manager of the dealer there, the big place, you know. And it was just after we got married, and I used to go over after hours. I had an apartment right across from the garage, and I used to go over there, and work on an old car that I bought that ran into a steel pole and buckled it all up, and I was working down in the basement there like after hours, and my boss would come over and sit there and chew the rag with me down in the basement, mind you, when I was working on the car. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's just hard to believe, Doc, what I've done too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Do back on the prairies there. But you grew up north of Edmonton there someplace?
North of Calgary.
North of Calgary.
55 miles north of Calgary, Disbury.
Right. And what did you do back there?
Just a farm hand, really. Although I rode in a stampede once in Calgary.
How did you make out there?
As a kid, they wouldn't let us ride a horse. An Indian boy and I were too small, they said, so we had to ride a calf.
Oh.
But we didn't get bucked off.
What made you come out here to BC?
Well, after thrashing was finished down there in the fall, when everybody had their grain thrashed, there wasn't anything to do but feed a few cattle if you felt like you wanted to fatten up a few steers or something. But normally there was bugger all to do, and had you sit around and wait around and do nothing. Go into town, play a little pool or something. But I had to find some new ground. I had to see something different.
So you came out here to work for the CPR then?
Well, I didn't come to work for anybody. I just came out here to see what Nelson was like. I heard it was an awful nice little town. Awful lot of nice stone buildings in it, and
Yeah.
well made, and stone masons were around anyway.
How long ago was that?
Well, I was 28.
28. Yeah.
That same year, I came out here about, no, it wouldn't be 28, it'd be 27. I come out here in December. I stayed here till February. And February is the 28th.
Well,
That's
and
when I
when-
started the game.
Right. And then you started with CPR shortly after coming out here.
Yeah.
Right. And then who was this buddy that used to go hunting with you from the CPR?
Well, this was Booth.
Booth, right. And he-
Booth was his name, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I went hunting with lots of them. The Bay Boys, for instance, and there was 3 of them. I guess there's still 2. No, still 3. 4th of them died. And then there was, well, not Ringwood, but Hager, Renwick, and a few others around here used to do a little hunting, art and craft. So I hunted with them in the fall each year. So,
Now, who was the fellow that made a bet with you that you couldn't dress out a deer? And
That was
what was
Booth.
it? That was Booth.
yeah,
And how much time did he give you to dress out a deer?
he didn't give me any time at all. I just told him that I could drive out a field dress a deer in 5 minutes, and he said, you can't do it. Well, I said, I sure as hell can. I've done lots of that. I said, I don't cut them all fancy or anything. I said, I just field dress them. Get that guts out of there so they don't spoil, and take care of them in a nice, sensible way. So anyways, I guess I might as well start from the first of that. We were going over to Van Midway, and we didn't have a damn thing for Midway, and they had nothing over there to speak of. Mom helped me. So he suggested, let's turn at Grand Forks and come back instead of going over and staying overnight.
This was on the CPR.
Yeah, this is on the,
Yeah.
it's on the track. We had a train, about 30 cars going over there. And we left them at Midway, or at Grand Forks, so you could pick them up there and take them into Midway easy because the hill wasn't very heavy. And so at Castlegar he says, you got the little short gun, Jack? And I says, yep. Oh. He only go and get it. I said, you go and get it. I'm switching this damn train out. I said, you got nothing to do. Go down and get it yourself. It's in the caboose and it's laying on my bed. So he did that. We went as far as Paulton. And he was a good guy for these widow women that died, or their husband died on the railroad, you know. And he got, well, there was 3 that I knew of. And he used to get them Madeira each fall, women. And that's how he did it. So we got 2 little white-tailed at Paulson. The rest, I really shouldn't say that, because that's kind of against the law, because he should have only had 1 anyway. But anyway, he got these for these women. And he says, when we're coming back, if I can get a fairly good sized deer, he said, I'd like to see you make that bluff stick when you said you could field dress a deer in 5 minutes. Oh, I said, that's okay with me. So at Lafferty, there's a big gravel bank, sloping. It's been gravel taken off and ballasted various places for years and years and years, you know, and it's a real run. Well, darned if it down, nice 2-point muley jumped up there and started up that hill, and he shot it. It was only up about 25 feet on the hill. And hey off the goddamn engine, the engine, everybody. They pulled up to a caboose this evening and they all come back. And I don't know whether you know Mel Ferrer or not. Big Italian boy that just took his pension. He was there and he told me about it the other day. I damn near forgot about it. I field dressed that thing and had it hanging up on the caboose in 3 minutes. Believe it or not.
And the muleys aren't so small either.
No, they're bigger than
the
whitetail.
Absolutely.
All I did was open him up from the ribs right here, right back to the tail, and run my knife around his hind end inside there. And up here, I cut his throat real deep, so his windpipe and everything was cut off, and I reached up in there and pulled that out. Well, out comes the heart and the liver and the lungs. So I just not break that cavity. There, I just pulled this out and I threw the heart back in there and the liver back in there. And just peeled it out after that. And it was 3 minutes and a few seconds. A little brighter, you can see a little more of. But they're every color of the continent rainbow. This black and white streaks to it. There's another one with white streaks in it.
Now, where did you collect most of these?
Well, right down here at Beasley.
Tell me, Jack, how many of these arrowheads have you collected? Did you ever get around to counting them all?
Well, not specifically, but I think I got around, maybe 10,000.
And you picked most of those up yourself?
I did pick them all up. I never got any from anybody else.
Is that right?
That's why I put it in my spare time. If I had a little spare time on the railroad, I'd jump in the car and run out to Beasley and walk along the beach. Or even down here at the park, you can find some down here too. I got some that I found down here, yeah. And over on the other side, I got about, 6 or 8 on the other side, where they're nice big, good shaped arrowheads, you know, big husky ones like these. Those. That's pretty good, the big one, that's the real spearheads, you know. These are scrapers. That's what they use to take the flesh off their damn hides, before they tried to tan them.
Well, explain those ones at the top there.
Like this?
Yeah.
I only used that in the hand, like this, you know, and scraped the hide, and took all the flesh and the sinews off it,
Right.
yeah, right down to leather. And that one's the same. That one I think is the same too, and I think these two are the same. And some of them are real flint, some of them are just bloody well sharpened rock. There's a darn good one. There's no notches in it. It's what they call they just wedge that into a cut in a limb, you know, and then tied it tight so it couldn't come out, because it's bigger at the tail end than it was here. So when they wrapped it there, it couldn't come out. And they used them as spears. I think mostly fighting amongst themselves.
What are those large ones at the bottom there?
These, Well, that's on the same principle. That's scraper and that's scraper. But this is a blonde arrowhead, and it's made out of that kind of rock flow. Like, I guess you see, this is green. Well, this one's pink, or damn near. And there's quite a few of them made out of that. There's one. Where's another one? There's another one. Some of them are so darn delicate you'd wonder what the hell they were. You pick them up and you look and look and look and finally you figure out it's an arrowhead. I turned it, that was on the stove. I don't know. Those were a very useful ones, the sharp ones. I think they had them placed in arrows, and they used them with a bow. But some of these other dummy ones, I think, were just used as spearheads.
They'd be used for fishing too, I guess. Eh?
Oh yeah. See, those days there was great big fish in the Calgary water. There was fish that I would say, I think their average fish was around 10 pounds at one time in through here, before the dams was put in and that. They had their own little spawning ground. See, there's 5 dams on this goddamn river. If you take them dams out of there and that river look altogether different.
That's right.
There'd be no lake at Beasley there at all. There'd be no lake below there.
Yeah.
But it'd just be a nice wide river. Well, it's the same here. We're banked up from Corlin right here to the park.
Right. Well, this river would never have frozen over though unless they put the dams in, eh?
That's right.
Right. Well, when was it that you used to skate out on the lake here?
Well, around the boathouses there, there might be an acre or acre and a half of ice.
Almost every winter, right?
Oh yes, every winter.
Right. Well, when was it you skated all the way up to Balfour?
Approximately that was what? Oh God. Me 19.
You'd have been a young man then. That would take a lot of effort to skate all the way up there.
I'd be about 33 again.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't bad. We were used to skating. Well, my job was used to running and working anyhow.
Well, now, would you skate all the way back the same day?
Oh,
too?
yes.
That's right.
Nothing to it.
Yeah. And,
There were 3 of us went up there.
yeah.
There was John and Page. I think he and Renwick played out about about halfway up. He was kind of fat. There was John and Page, myself, and Art Anderson, and one of the Crafts. We went all the way up and back. Oh yes.
Well, did you know George Kraft? He died a little while ago. He was quite a photographer. That's why I knew him. He took a lot of pictures here, pictures of the stern wheelers. George Kraft.
I should know him possibly, but about that time I was visiting a cat covering button the county nails, you know, at my own job. So I wouldn't know these people unless there was some specific reason.
What work were you doing then?
I was on the D&D department.
Oh yeah.
And we built bridges, put ties in bridges in, and did all kinds of work on that.
How far out would you work from Nelson?
Well, I eventually went right through the Coquihalla Pass, but that wasn't very early. That was just before I got started as a brakeman. I worked over there and those fellows told me, he says, why the hell aren't you braking? He says, there's no money in what you're doing now. And I was foreman on the ridge crew over there and it wasn't funny. You're way the hell gone away from everybody. So when I came back, I started on the braking part. And got a bunch of little birds over here again. I don't know, bird arseholes.
Little glass ones.
This one's found across from Beasley. over where that old house is. And this one, I think was found down here. I think that one and that long one were found on the other side of the lake here. Stay put. Don't get foxy. There's quite a bunch in there, you know. I've got a lot loose around here that I haven't, haven't put in boxes.
But they'd all be collected in the Kootenays pretty well, eh?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I got about 2 from Cranbrook, and I think I got about 4 from Midway. Other than that, the rest are all on the Kootenay Lake and Narrow Lakes and the rivers. Yeah, it was quite a game. Just find a real nice, pretty
One again.
just like I took a hold of it there.
What was it used for?
I guess for fighting, I don't know. Maybe after wounding a bear or deer or something, they'd use that.
So you were born, you say, in the old country?
Yes.
Back in 1895?
1895, yes.
Right. And when did you come out here to Canada?
1912.
And did you start work on the old stern wheelers just...
Two days later.
Is that right?
Yes.
And you were working as a steward, is that right?
Yes.
What were your duties as a steward on the boat?
Well, of course, a waiting table, and clean up the ship in the interior,
Yeah. What were your hours?
Oh, well, we started breakfast at 7 o'clock in the morning, and we were going to, in the summertime, breakfast lasted 11 o'clock in the morning. A big bunch of people aboard,
Yeah.
Everybody wanted breakfast.
Well, by 11 o'clock in the morning, you'd almost have to start getting ready for lunch already.
Well, the cooks were all ready for lunch.
Yeah.
But, of course, some people are slow in coming along, in the morning, and we had to wait for them and give them their breakfast. But, taking all in all, it was very, very job.
What were the wages like?
The wages.
Yeah.
But when I first started, it was $1 an hour on board.
$1?
And $1 a day on board.
$1 a day plus board.
Yeah.
Right. And you worked how many days then?
When the first time, it was 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Every week, Christmas Day and everybody else.
Yeah.
But it was later when it started to get organised, we had a day off every week.
Right.
And that made it very nice. It was a long week when you're working 7 days a week.
You did work 7 days a week then, part of the time, did you?
Yeah. And we started at 7 in the morning. We were called at 6:30, and we started breakfast at 7. And we went right through to, in the summertime, we were at 10, 11 o'clock in the morning before we got to some passengers. Quite a lot of passengers travelled through the noonday,
Yeah. How late at night would you work then?
Oh, well, we had to take different shifts, Some nights we worked from, we got in around 8 o'clock at night to Nelson, and we had to take a shift to meet the coast train coming from Vancouver at 10 o'clock at night. And 2 or 3 of us left to be back in time to help to berth the passengers, you see.
Right.
And that would last till probably 11 o'clock.
What were some of your runs?
From Nelson to Kootenay Landing.
Oh, that was your regular run?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Nelson, Kootenay Landing.
Oh yeah, 7 days a week, yes.
Right.
It was nice. We had a 5-hour layover at Kirby Grenfell, you see, waiting for the westbound
train to come in.
Right.
And,
And so how long did you work as a steward on the stern whalers?
well, I worked there I ended up as chief steward in 1935.
So that was a pretty good job then, eh?
Oh, yeah, it was a good job. And it was a good single man's job because he had a home. All his meals ready for him.
Right.
And all he had to do was make his own bed. So.
Right. Well, in 35, you must have been married by then, eh?
Yeah, that's when I got married in the. Let's see now. We were married in yes. We were married in 2024.
Right. So it was kind of tough being married then and being on board the boat most of the time.
Yes, it was kind of rough going, you know. In the early days, I was running late quite often, you know. And sometimes I didn't get out overnight at supper, but stayed on the boat all night. So. But as things got better, you got better conditions. It turned out pretty good, you know.
Well, you were telling me that sometimes you'd work 6 days, get in Saturday night, and then they'd want you to take a run on Sunday up to Castle.
Oh, yeah, quite. Especially in the summertime, we'd arrive in Nelson around 8 o'clock at night. And the port steward, he'd come aboard and say, we see the old Moyet was tied up in there under the wharf. And said, what's the old Moyet going to do? And one way along when our port steward come aboard and said, hey, I got a midnight trip up the lake, I'd like you to come over. We can't do nothing else to say, okay, and just get a few things together and be able to look after the passenger. There's nothing really to do, just more or less keep watching.
Right. Well, you were given a little overtime for that, were you? No overtime to work an extra day?
No overtime in those days.
No fringe benefits then at all.
No. If you didn't like it, there's others to do it. In those days.
Right.
But it was. Actually, it was a good job. But we were very fortunate. We had a nice bunch of officers. The whole crew all joined in together, you know. And we had 5 hours layover through the landing. And after lunch, we'd all ready. Some of the officers we'd all play cards, and probably we'd go out and when the lake was frozen over in the winter time, we'd go out. It was only a shallow, about 4 or 5 inches of ice, you know, and we'd go out playing hockey on the lake there.
Right near the ferry slip there,
Oh, yes.
I guess.
Yeah, and all the officers, those that wasn't on watch, you know, they come out and play too, and
Yeah.
we were really a happy family, you know.
Right.
It was really nice.
Did they have any disasters or near disasters on the boat while you were working?
Well, yes, there's 2 or 3 I could account for, but it wasn't reported like near disasters.
Near disasters, like what?
Well, this one instance there, we left Boswell and we was heading for Pilot Bay in Proctor. It was a very dirty night, it was a black night, raining to beat the band there. We were doing pretty good.
I heard the jingle. I saw the captain after he had his supper. He used to spend a few minutes on the main floor of the deck there. Then he'd go upstairs and take the wheel, you see, coming into the West Arm. This year, I saw him. He dashed upstairs there, went up those steps there, about 3 steps at a time, and I heard him banging the pilot door wheel, and then the bell started to go down to the engine room, and so I went into the pantry, and of course it was a pitch black night, but sometimes you could see, even you know where you are, where it is. I got it. I looked out the pantry window there, and the goddamn rocks was just facing me there. Oh God! And then the captain was throwing the bells to the engine room, you know, to reverse and back up and forward effect. Well, another 3 or 4 minutes, boy, we'd have banged right head onto the rocks.
Oh, the rocks near
Yeah, right
Proctor
ahead of
there.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're heading straight into the rock bank there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes, I can't understand it because the man at the railway is an experienced man too, and the captain. We couldn't avoid hitting the rocks there if the captain had hit it just at that time. He swung it right round, you know. See? He stopped him and then he gradually moved it around. Boy, it was quite a sight.
Did you ever have a fire on board? Because there was always that hazard with those big fire, those big wood fuel.
Not on us in the Spokane. We were fortunate that we didn't have any serious direct trouble, in Klein,
Some of those stern wheelers did burn down, though, didn't they?
Well, the older ones, yes.
Right.
So there was 2 or 3 of the older ones were purposely burnt,
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Well, you were on the Nasukan then.
The circuit, yeah.
Right.
I joined in the circuit, the maiden trip to Plaza in 1924. No, 1912. And I stayed aboard her all the time until she tied up in 31.
Right. Now, you were saying you worked on the Nasukan until 30?
Well, first she was launched in 1913, and I was aboard from the time she started right up to 1931 when he tied the Nasukan up then. He kind of cut down all the boats and the airplanes would come along and beating us out.
Right. And you worked on the Bonington then for a while.
I worked on that one for a few weeks here, yes.
Right. And what was her run?
From West Robson to Our Head.
Yeah.
It was a long trip. I think it was 70, 80 miles. That was 6 days a week. I wanted it. In fact, the Sukin was the only ship of the whole crew that worked 7 days a week. But see, we were handling all the mainline passengers and freight and mail and everything. We had to run 7 days a week.
Yeah. And after you worked on the Bonington, what did you do then?
Well, I came back under Kuskook just before the Sukin came out. And then we were joined, all the crew went over from the Sukin, from the Kuskook into the Sukin, you see. And we were the regular crew on the Sukin at that time.
Right. Well, when the passenger service though ceased here in about 1935.
Yes, well, the Sukin tied up in 1931.
Oh, 31.
Yeah, New Year's morning, 1931. We tied up at Proctor.
And that was her last run.
Yeah. And I went on the old Minto for a few weeks at that time too.
Yeah.
Just to get the winter passed along.
Right.
You know, the old Minto's a wonderful old ship, you know. You got a history, goes right down all down the line, you know.
Yeah.
Was,
well, that the Minto didn't finally get scrapped or burned until about 1955 or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, then the CPA took the news. They sold it to the provincial government, you know.
Yeah.
And she was running after we tied up as a ferry.
Yeah.
Until the Nasuka was built.
Right.
Oh.
But when you finally when all of those stern wheelers ceased operation, what work did you do? Did you retire then?
Well, yes. Well, in fact, one of the other boys and I had 18 years service, and the other chap he had 20. So we down on the coast boats for a few weeks there. Running from Vancouver to Skagway, you know.
Oh yeah.
And then when that tied up in September, early September, we came back on the Kootenai Lake here. So,
Well, did you ever work on the ferry service here? On the car ferry service?
Well, no, of course previous to the bridge being built.
Yeah.
We used to carry the cars from Kuskook into Nelson.
Oh, so you worked on that car ferry service then?
Yeah, that was all included on the daily run.
Yeah.
I've noticed had 31 cars on that lower deck with a freight and mail and everything else on board. You couldn't move on that lower deck.
Oh, that was on the old Nasukan.
Yeah.
You took cars then?
Yes.
Right. But I was thinking after the Nasukan was finally retired and the stern wheeler service was no longer used at all, what work did you do? Because you were too young to retire in 1935,
no.
weren't you?
I went on Bonington for a few weeks to get straightened up during the winter nights. Then I came back on the old Kuskook.
Oh yes.
That's the Kuskook.
And where was the Kuskook running at that time?
And then she was running from Castle to Nelson.
Oh, and that kept on running for some time then after
yes.
that.
It was just the main. In fact, the boy was running from Crawford Bay to Nelson too at that time.
Oh yeah.
It was just the main line that clipped down.
Right. Well, then you stayed on the stern wheelers virtually your whole career.
Well, yes. I stayed until the Sukin was retired over there. And I retired from the CPR and I went driving the streetcar for the city of Nelson.
Oh, is that right? So you worked on the old number 33 here for a while.
31, 21, 22, and 23.
Oh, 21, 22, 23. Right. All three of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Well, you knew Mr. Hall.
Oh, yeah. Very well.
Sure.
You mean Mr. Les Hall?
Well, I just know him as Mr. Hall. He was out at Willowhaven. My wife looked after him.
That's right. That's the Les Hall. Well, he was superintendent of the service at that time.
Right.
Yes, he was a fine man. That's all. You know, he wasn't a boat or a nut that, on that the Sukin that he didn't know.
Yeah. Were you ever on one of those streetcars when it left the track? Because they used. Is that right? Never hurt though.
You know, very, very fortunate. We went. It was very strange how that happened. It was in October. I remember October the 12th, actually in 1942, and it was a very poor day. It was trying to snow, rain and all that kind of stuff. And we had a clean rail all the way along, right up the hill, all the way down. And while we was up the hill, there was a few drops of rain came down. And not very much, but and when we turned around and came into the top of Stanley Street, the rain was and the leaves off the trees all joined together by and that was really dynamite. It was just like this kind of and she started to go by I pulled her into reverse and there's no response to that. And my conductor's wife was waiting at the corner of Seneca Street with his lunch bucket. See? And when I didn't stop, she went, whoa, look, she didn't understand, but it wasn't very long before she heard us down on Sandy on Baker Street, turning the corner. And it was a funny thing, we were going quite fast, all right, but the front truck turned on the wheel onto Baker Street, but the back truck came off the rail and swung right round and was looking upstairs.
Oh, so you didn't crash into the building then?
No, we didn't stop.
You just stayed. The front truck stayed on the track, and the back truck came off and swung you right around.
Yeah. Well, she was looking up. That's the way she goes.
Nobody injured then?
No, luckily we only had 5 passengers on board at the time, and there was three of them for young fellas. They as soon as we got to Baker Street, they just opened the door and climbed out just like a train crew, you know, and they swung off. But there was a lady and a little boy. She was still on. But she sat down on a seat there and she kindly rode out till she stopped, you know.
Yeah.
It was quite all right.
Well, there was the odd time though when that streetcar left the track completely, and once it even went into the building there at the corner.
You know, that was at 12 o'clock noon. This fella come down on the first trip. That was the afternoon trip, and he came down the Stanley Street, and the motorman had forgotten to turn on the brake, you know. And of course he came sailing down there, and he was going to stop too fast to do anything. By the time we got to Victoria Street, she shoot right, and she went over the rail and right pretty down to the alley down there. That was lucky. Nobody hurt aboard them. There was another time when one of the fellows was out with old 23, you know.
Yeah.
And he was late coming into the switch on Front Street, and we were supposed to wait there 15 minutes, and then if he didn't show up, we were supposed to carry on to Baker Street, see, and we did that there, and
we just got to the post office, and the other car was coming down here, and so I went on the other end of the car, switched over, and took her back to the switch, you see, and the other fellow come in. And so I don't know. I said, "What the hell, George?" "Oh," he said, I didn't have any brakes." I said, "Didn't you have any brakes?" He said, "No." How come, so? I stepped over on the front end there and put my hand up to the switch. He'd forgot to turn the brake on.
No power to the brake.
And he got the wind up too, and he turned the handbrakes on, see? So he went up and he was just nudging along the road there. He was scared stiff. So I said, "Well, you didn't turn them on, George."